Right, welcome here, Punch Out Boxing. Delighted to be here with Louise Orton ahead of her third pro fight on the Big TM14 show this Saturday. How are you, Louise?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. You all right?
Yeah, fabulous. Like yourself, just wrapping up the day's work. You know how great it is to work from home, don't you? I don't. You're in a serious job. My job is just pretending to work when I'm at home. Fortunately, my boss hates boxing, has no intention of ever looking at any of my interviews, so he won't get to find out about this. Um, so yeah, but you obviously still have to do your job because you was it the social work you do as your day job?
So I'm a mental health nurse by profession,
Mhm.
but I currently work for the patient safety team. So any kind of serious incident that happens within a prison in Kent or London, I conduct kind of an internal investigation into the healthcare that was provided. So
Very
yeah, it's not a straightforward job.
so. Third pro fight
Mm.
as mentioned. When we spoke last at York Hall, where you will be returning to on Saturday, you did mention how you want to get active. Turned pro 2 years ago, one fight a year. You really want to get going. So, do you know who your opponent is on Saturday yet?
Yeah, I'm fighting Jamalet, I think her name is. She's a lady from Nicaragua, but I think she's living in the UK.
Yeah, we've got a whole contingent of Nicaraguans who've obviously come over and based themselves here to earn their traders' journeymen and women. Sure, you don't know, you need to be told. Some of these
Yeah.
Latinas, they're pretty tough, and a few of them are actually dangerous. It's been a couple of prospects in the men's game, at least, who've been starched by Nicaraguan journeymen. So this is a step up of sorts, possibly.
Yeah, I think to be honest, people underestimate journeymen and journeywomen. I think sometimes they're actually the most dangerous because a lot of the time they can be quite wild and unpredictable, and they're quite unorthodox. A lot of them as well. A lot of the pros that are coming through have got kind of England or GB backgrounds, so their style is kind of like upright boxers. You know where the shots are coming from, whereas a lot of the journeymen are quite unorthodox, as I said, and they swing a lot. And if you get caught by one of them swings, because it's coming from an angle that you're not kind of used to shots coming from, yeah, I can imagine that some people obviously get found out by a journeyman on occasion.
Yeah, a good journeyman or woman, I guess that's their job to expose anyone who's a fraud. So I'm sure you'll be totally on point come Saturday night. Tell me, did you have to train through the Christmas period for this, or is this a bit of a late notice fight?
No, no, no. I was training, so obviously boxed the 11th of November. Had a couple of weeks out of the gym just to kind of catch up on work, but stayed on top of my strength for my runs, and then went back just over Christmas. Yeah, so been training. Had to keep the Christmas weight off.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're training, I mean, much like the fights, you have to have incremental step ups. Is your training the intensity, the difficulty? Is that sort of now? Are you upping the ante in terms of that?
So obviously, fight week generally is more deloading. It's just kind of staying ready, ticking over. The intense work's already been done. It's now just a case of staying sharp, staying on top of your game, feeling good. So yeah, it's been. I think this camp was about 8 weeks long. So it's felt a bit longer than that, I think, because obviously coming straight back off the end of another camp, straight into another one. All good. Training's gone really well. Training hard as always, alongside full-time work. So we've got there.
What weight will you be fighting at on Saturday?
Super feather, but obviously it's not for a belt or anything, so I'll come in just over super feather, like over the championship weight.
Okay, so when you operate at championship level, is it super featherweight you're going to be targeting?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, even the issue of weight making, I guess, is still something new to you. You haven't yet had to make, championship weight 24 hours before the fight, all of that.
Well, obviously prior to COVID and during COVID, I had many fights that were scheduled, some
Mhm.
of which were cancelled on the day, some of which were kind of cancelled the day before. So in terms of actually making weight, I've had quite a bit of experience as a pro with day before weigh-ins making weight. Although I've only boxed twice, I've actually got to the weigh-in many times before that. So yeah, making weight's not a problem, and I've got a brilliant nutritionist. And obviously without him, it probably would be a whole lot harder. But yeah, Paul, he makes it happen kind of easy in that sense. As long as you stick to the plan, there's no problem.
Sure. Interesting issue around weight making. I've always been interested in how it's done differently around the world. And the difference between men and women. Asked Michaela Mayer about this. She made an interesting point that men can do a lot more of a water cut because they can draw water out of a lot more muscle mass. Fair to say, for yourself as a woman, you can't do much of a water cut.
Um, to be honest, I'm not really too sure about that. I suppose it depends how well your cells retain the water throughout camp, how hydrated you stay throughout camp. But I know with me and my nutrition that kind of every training session, I'm making sure that I'm replacing all the salts that I've lost, the electrolytes. My nutritionist obviously says about adding salt to my food so that I do retain fluid. In terms of the difference between male and females, I'm not sure how that differs, but I would imagine obviously men do have naturally more muscle mass. So yes, I would assume that they do hold more fluid. But in terms of me, I do actually hold a fair amount of fluid, to be honest. I feel it like on my body. And I noticed the difference in fight week when you're cutting fluid, obviously how much fluid you are retaining. But yeah, I suppose a lot of nutritionists do it differently as well, because it depends if you've got an on the day weigh-in or day before weigh-in as to how you make the weight. So yeah, I suppose nutritionists do it differently. I've heard of some people losing 6-7 kilo on the day of a weigh-in, and to me, I personally wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, because psychologically I think that can have quite a bit of damage on a boxer when they've had to cut that much weight the day before a fight, whereas I like to do it more gradually so that I don't have anything to do on the fight day and it's all done kind of prior to the event. But yeah, everyone does it differently, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've asked a few fighters, especially in the lighter weight classes with the men. They do it different around the world, as I mentioned. Lighter weight classes, these guys from Latin America and Asia in particular, they do some insane things, but it doesn't seem to affect them. You look at Mexicans, it doesn't affect their punch resistance, for example, generally. Might be a genetic component.
Mm.
I'd imagine in a lot of those countries, they don't have the same sort of health and safety measures that we've got, that the board have got over here. Do you have any concerns?
Yeah, probably. In terms of what?
Well, we saw recently, for example, Sonny Edwards getting hugely outsized by a Mexican presumably because they go to greater lengths to take off more weight and then rehydrate 20 pounds overnight. When you come to the sort of international level, you might come across these people from parts of the world where they'll do more extreme weight cuts and you'll find yourself hugely outsized.
Yeah, I think there is a danger of that because, like you say, you might end up coming up against someone who's absolutely huge compared to you because of kind of the way they've cut the weight. But then I suppose you've got a question, have they done it safely? Has it had an impact upon their body and their physical ability in that sense? But at the same time, some governing bodies, I'm not sure which one it is, maybe the IBF or something like that, they do, once you've weighed in, you have a check weigh-in on the day of your fight, so you can't put on more than a certain amount of weight. So I suppose that does help regulate it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that's a bit down the line for you to worry about in the immediacy. You're still here in the UK. So
Yeah.
third pro fight, um, obviously you had that great amateur pedigree, fought a lot of the top names. So I can't imagine you will want too many more sort of six rounders. In terms of the technical side of things, your coach is happy with where you are and looking to sort of move you along after this one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me as well, it was, I didn't really want to waste too much time fighting journeymen, because realistically, although they are building your kind of record in that sense, they're not really doing anything to challenge you or to develop you or to get you to a position that you need to be to start fighting kind of 50-50 fights. So I've said to my manager kind of after this one, I don't really want any more journeymen. I want 50-50 fights that are actually going to get me to a good position where I can start challenging kind of the top people, and be in a good position to move forwards. I think there's a lot of people that spend quite a lot of time fighting journeymen, and that's fine if you've got the time to do that. But I think for me, because I'm older than kind of some of the people out there, I think I haven't really got time on my side. So I want to progress as quickly as I can, and as fast as I can to kind of the higher ranks, really.
Yeah, although it's worth remembering our local girl Nina Hughes. I think she started at 40 and she's flying. So
Top
32 is
respect
young.
to
Uh,
Nina, yeah.
but the good news is for you
Yeah.
around super featherweight. Yeah, some interesting potential matchups. Your old amateur rival Kirsty Hill. She recently she had her first crack at a title over, I think I think it was Montenegro. She fell short
I
for the
think that was her second. I think that was the second fight because she's already got the Commonwealth. So she
okay.
won the Commonwealth before that, and then she challenged for that fight over in, I can't remember what country it was, but yeah, she lost that one. But yeah, Kirsty Hill sat at number one at Super Feather. I've got a lot of respect for Kirsty, obviously from the amateurs. We were friends, and at some point we knew we was going to have to box in the amateurs, and it happened in the championships. Chances are we're the same weight again now. We will have to box again, but we're both kind of professional people, and I'm sure if we do end up meeting, it will be an entertaining fight.
Yeah, there's another young lady making waves, HARLI Whitwell. I know you came up against her sister a couple of
Yeah,
times in the amateurs. Um, yeah, HARLI, she
yeah.
just a weekend gone. She's coming up the rankings, so it's a perfect time where we could finally see some of you girls actually get the inaugural Lonsdale belt. Maybe some of you will be involved in that. Is that something you'd like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of kind of fights out there. I think the thing for the females is that because there's not enough females at a top level, I think a lot of them are being quite cautious of who they fight, because if you're fighting another prospect and one of you loses, I think as a female where there's not many opponents out there, it can be quite detrimental to your career. So the younger ones, i.e. like HARLI, will probably spend more time building their career, because if HARLI, being young, took a tough fight at such a young age, I suppose how if it potentially might affect her career, I don't know. But I think it's more the older ones, i.e. like me and Kirsty, that are going to have to take the risky fights because we are that much older. And female professional boxing at the moment is still quite raw. It's still in the early stages, really. And obviously the younger ones have got more time to take their time.
I know you fighters don't like looking ahead, and you have got that job at hand on Saturday. But is there anyone in the game that you actually want to fight?
Well, obviously Kirsty's got the Commonwealth, so if I want the Commonwealth, then yeah, at some point I'll be fighting Kirsty. There's no one in the weight that I think, oh God, I don't want to fight them, because then I think, well, why am I doing this sport if I'm going to duck away from fights? I think if you genuinely want to be the best in that weight category, then you've got a fighter who's in that category, and whoever that is, yeah, we'll have to fight. And I mean, kind of when it comes, but both people, I'm sure, whoever fights will put on an entertaining fight, because if you've got two prospects fighting each other, it's bound to be an interesting fight because they're both capable of winning. And I think a lot of the time it will just all boil down to, on the night, who performs better.
Absolutely. How do you assess the top level of the division? Obviously, Alicia Baumgardner's the undisputed champion still. Was involved in a bit of controversy last year around some drug testing result. I'm not sure the exact nature of that, but she's still the undisputed champ. Do you think she's genuinely the best in the division? Do you think there's anyone who might challenge her and topple her from her throne this year?
To be honest with you, I don't watch, it sounds really ironic really, but to be honest, I don't actually watch a lot of boxing. I think not only do I not get much time, but I find it quite frustrating sometimes when I'm watching boxing, especially for people that I've met kind of in the amateurs and stuff like that. When I see them on TV in the positions that they are, I end up getting into a situation where I start comparing myself to other people, which then makes me more kind of annoyed that my career's been delayed because of COVID and stuff like that. So I tend not to watch too much boxing on telly. I have seen Alicia, and from what I've seen, she looks quite strong. She looks quite lean, but I mean, everyone's beatable. So I suppose it just depends on the tactics, the game plan, and how you perform on the day, really. But I think everyone is beatable to a certain extent.
In your amateur days, did you come across any of those sort of classic East Coast American fighters? Often they're really technically well schooled. Her coach, Tony Harrison, was considered one of the most technically adept fighters in the game. Did you ever come across anyone like that?
Not really, to be honest. I think in terms of tough fights, because of what they've won and the positions that they were in, I suppose Kelly Harrington, she's up there. Obviously, she's now Olympic gold medalist. She's new multi-world champion amateur. So I imagine she'll be turning over at some point. But I think realistically, in all of my fights, the people that I've come up against have all been the top names in amateur boxing. They've all been kind of the ones that are on GB or national champions from whatever country. I've always had hard fights, to be honest. So I couldn't really identify a particular individual that's been like that. But they've all been competitive fights. They've all been kind of worthy opponents in that sense, and it's always been an entertaining fights, I suppose. Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone in the game that you sort of look up to and want to emulate?
I think there's a few people out there that I kind of aspire to be. Obviously, Chantel, everyone knows Chantel's been quite supportive of me in my career, and me and Chantel go back a long way. I admire Chantel, especially lately, because of like the comeback with Katie trying to get the trilogy. I think that takes a lot of guts to kind of come back from such an iconic like fight, basically, because they were both massive fights. And I mean, she done the business the first time. Second time it went Katie's way, and rather than like just calling it a game and kind of backing down and accepting one apiece, they're both willing to kind of fight again. So I suppose I admire both of them in that sense, and especially boxing. But yeah, there's many kind of people out there that I admire and aspire to be like. I couldn't kind of pinpoint particular individuals in that sense, but there's quite a few out there that I look up to. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the women's game is flying right now. I spoke to your local Rob Caswell, who's going to be headlining on Saturday night. Great time for the Medway region of boxing, in Kent for boxing.
Yeah.
Hope Rob will join that illustrious group of fighters that are coming through. But you know, you got the Itoma brothers, you know, young Moses targeting Mike Tyson's record. A year from now, he could be a superstar. You got Sam Noakes knocking people into next week. Yeah, I mean, would you like
putting Kent on the map, aren't we?
Would you like Rob? Would you like to do a big show down there in Rochester or Maidstone one day?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I say about it all the time. I think with the amount of boxers that we've got now, kind of from Kent, Medway, all around this area, there's definitely enough to put on a show. But I suppose in terms of like Midge and Sean and stuff like that, where they're with the Warrens, like Queensbury, that probably wouldn't be possible for us all to box on the same show. But I mean, in terms of the up and coming talent like me and Rob and stuff like that, I think, yeah, definitely that there's room, I think, to have some local shows, especially for my gym. There's 3 or 4 other kind of pro boxers around, so yeah, there's definitely the talent there to have our own show. It's just finding someone who's willing to put that on, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we can try and spread the word to promoters, including the big ones. Hey, look, they need to. We've seen over in Saudi Arabia, if there's enough money, they'll cooperate. That could be fantastic to bring a show down to Kent. You boys and girls fighting down there have very much earned it. But yeah, what is it about Kent that it produces so many of these good fighters? Are you guys also down there that you've got nothing better to do than fight each other?
Well, if you don't know Medway, then yeah, but yeah, if you come to Medway, it's renowned for fights and yeah, I won't say too much, but it's where the chav kind of phrase comes from, Chatham area and stuff like that. It's there's a lot of I wouldn't say poverty stricken because it's not poverty, but there's a lot of kind of deprived areas, a lot of kind of kids on the street with not a lot else to do really, and because of the boxing gyms that are around, I think a lot of the kids turn to boxing. And yeah, my amateur club, some areas in Chatham, we had probably some of the roughest kids, but when they start boxing and transforming them into boxers, they're some of the best kids. So yeah, it's where a lot of boxing gyms find most of their talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not forget the importance that this sport has in those sort of areas, keeping youngsters, keeping their aggression diverted to something constructive. So, all right, Louise, thank you so much for your time. Anything you want to add before we look forward to Saturday night?
No, that's it. Thank you. Just obviously can't wait to box. Looking forward to it. 3rd time out. Needs to hurry up now. Feels like it's been a long time coming. But yeah, can't wait. Can't wait to get back in there.
Fantastic. Louise, thanks for taking some time out of your work schedule, and we'll see you Saturday night.
Yeah.